What's up guys, my name's Brandon and the iPhone 13 Pro Max is the biggest and heaviest iPhone Apple has ever made, but it's also the best and most feature-packed iPhone they've ever made. So in this video, I wanted to go over more than 20 features, tips, tricks, and just things you need to know about the iPhone 13 Pro Max. And I did make a separate video on the iPhone 13 and 13 Pro. That is my first things to do video. That is linked up in the cards and down in the description below. But this video is all about the 13 Pro Max. All right, so let's go ahead and start off with the first tip, and that is to use reachability. So this is a 6.7-inch display. So that means obviously, it's really hard to get to your notification center and to your control center with one hand. Unless you do crazy hand gymnastics, it's really hard to get up there with just one hand. And that's why you need to use reachability. So if you swipe down from like the dock area down into the screen, down into the, the bezel of the phone down here, it will invoke this action called reachability, which will let you access the control center and the notification center very easily. So that is a must for the 13 Pro Max. And this comes enabled by default, but if it's not for you, just go into your settings right here and then go to accessibility and then to touch, and you will see reachability right there. So go ahead and enable that. You definitely need it on the 13 Pro Max, whereas I don't use it personally on any other phone. Now, the next thing you need to know about the iPhone 13 Pro Max is that all three camera lenses now support night mode. So this year, Apple improved the telephoto lens yet again, and we can now take advantage of night mode. So before the 12 Pro Max, we were not able to take night mode shots with the telephoto lens, and this was the only lens that was not able to shoot night mode shots. It would just switch to the 1x module and crop in on that 12 Pro Max. But now on the 13 Pro Max, we could take advantage of night mode on any three lenses, which is really nice if you're into those night mode shots. And not only can that telephoto lens now take advantage of night mode, but it's also been upgraded in other ways. So it now has a 3x optical zoom right here, which is much better than it was on the 12 Pro Max. And we also have a 15x digital zoom. So if we keep zooming in, we can go all the way in to 15x now on the 13 Pro Max, which is awesome. And while we're on the subject of the camera improvements, I also wanted to point out that the ultrawide lens gained autofocus this year. So this is the reason that we can now shoot macro shots. So we get the ability to take macro shots on the iPhone 13 Pro Max. So take a look at how close I'm getting to this Apple Watch here. And this is only possible because, again, the ultra-wide camera now has autofocus, whereas it did not before. And you can get really close to these objects. This works for video as well. You will see the little transition there, and you can get really, really close. And this is super fun. This is probably one of my favorite features of the iPhone 13 Pro Max. It's just so impressive how close you can get to things. Let me give you guys another example. So take a look at how close I'm getting to this microfiber towel right there. And you can see the autofocus working. And if you take a picture of it, you can see that picture is of this microfiber, which is crazy. You can just get so close to it. And again, it does also work for video, which is just awesome. And again, that is one of my favorite features with the iPhone 13 Pro Max for sure. Now, another thing to know about the iPhone 13 Pro Max is that it has the loudest speakers I've ever heard on any iPhone. So the speakers, I tested this against the iPhone 12 Pro Max, which previously had the record for the loudest speakers in an iPhone, but the 13 Pro Max has extremely loud speakers. And not only are they extremely loud, but the clarity and the sound separation with music is just so much better on the 13 Pro Max compared to the 12 Pro Max, and of course compared to any other iPhone. So that is one thing to keep in mind. I never advise for you to turn up your music all the way on an iPhone, but the 13 Pro Max makes it tempting because it just sounds so good. Now, another thing to know about the iPhone 13 Pro Max is that we have a ProMotion 120 Hz display. So that means that our screen is refreshing 120 times per second versus 60 times per second like on any other previous iPhone. So this is something that is huge for the iPhone. It's the first time ever that we have a 120 Hz display. And the cool thing about it is that it's a variable refresh rate. It's a variable, 120 Hz display. That means that it's not always, set to 120 Hz. So like if you're going in Safari and you're scrolling really slow, it's maybe only going to be moving at 60 Hz. But if you start moving fast, it'll go to 120 Hz. And the same with the home screen. If you're moving slow, if you're reading a book and something, it's going to go slow. But the more intensive things you do, the faster you move on your iPhone, the faster that display is going to refresh. So if you're playing games, it's probably going to play in 120 hertz. If you're scrolling really fast through something, it's probably going to scroll in 120 hertz. It just depends on what you're doing, and your phone, the display will adjust to that, which is really neat. Now, if you go into your settings here and then go to accessibility and then to motion, you can limit the frame rate if you want to. So this will cap it at 60 frames per second. If you don't like it, if it makes you sick or whatever, you can cap it right there. That also gets enabled by default when you go into low power mode. So that's another thing to keep in mind. And then another thing about this display that I don't see too many people talking about is the higher max brightness. So this is most noticeable outdoors with auto brightness on, but I noticed that it's much brighter than the iPhone 12 Pro Max, especially like I said, in direct sunlight, and also it doesn't dim as easily or as long. So it seems like the thermals inside have improved here with the 13 Pro Max as well, so it doesn't dim like when it gets hot for as long as it did on the 12 Pro Max. So those are both also some nice additions to the display, along with, of course, we have the smaller notch up top, which is always a plus as well. Now going back into the camera application, we also have cinematic mode. So this is really awesome. I talked about this in depth in multiple videos, so I won't keep repeating myself, but basically this is really cool because it uses AI to detect when heads turn and you look at somebody else in a scene. It's just really cool. But you know, the thing to know about this is that you can do it on the iPhone 13 Pro Max, but regardless of the capacity or storage capacity, you are limited to 1080p at 30 FPS. So it's not going to be as good a quality as your 4K videos, but it still looks excellent. It's still 1080p 30 FPS, and it actually looks better than 1080p when you actually shoot it. So you definitely want to go ahead and try out cinematic mode. It's a ton of fun. And then also after you shoot it, you can change the f-stop right here. So if we go into this and we go to edit right here, you will see that you could actually change the focal length right here from f2.0 all the way to f16. And you could also turn off cinematic mode and mute that video really easily here as well in the edit screen. Now, another tip for the iPhone 13 Pro Max is if we go back to the photo section right here and swipe up, you will see that we have a new toggle here for photographic styles. And if you tap on that, you will see you have all these different options for essentially filters that you can apply to the camera application. And it's going to take a picture using these filters every time you take a picture until you turn it off or change it. So there's some presets right here, but I would advise you to change the tone and the warmth to your liking so you get the pictures that you actually like. And this is cool because a lot of people like those super saturated photos that like Androids take, that Samsungs take. So you could change it to that if you want to, or you could just keep it as, you know, regular iPhones do. So I would advise you to change it in there. Just keep in mind that every time you take a photo, it will take it with that filter until you turn it off or change it. Now you can also access this inside of settings. So if you go to your settings and then down to camera right here, and then down to photographic styles, you will see you get this right here, and you can just change it to whatever you want, or you can change it all the way back to standard and just use that. So you can access it from the camera or from the settings right here. And then you also want to make sure to pay attention to all of these toggles right here inside of your camera settings, especially this one right here, which is preserve settings. So the two main ones are going to be night mode and live photo. So you could also do it for creative controls if you want to, but night mode is the new one here with iOS 15 that you want to make sure is on, because night mode can be really annoying if you don't like night mode in general and it just turns on and you have to, you know, change it to turn it off. It's really annoying. A lot of people actually didn't know how to turn off night mode a while back. So I would just recommend having that turned on. That way it remembers, your camera application remembers the setting you had it set to last, so it keeps that. It kind of just saves your settings if you enable these preserved settings. And then the last thing I'll talk about with the camera settings here is if you go into your camera and go to record video, you will notice that HDR video is turned on by default. Now it's cool. HDR video looks really cool. It's really bright and everything. But if you share videos at all, especially if you edit videos or just share videos with friends, I would probably turn that off, just because if people cannot view HDR videos properly, like if their display doesn't allow for it, then it's going to look extremely blown out and just look really bad. So I feel like just having HDR video turned off is the preferred way, in my opinion, on the 13 Pro Max here. So again, it just comes down to how you use your phone. But for me personally, I turn that off just because it's a lot easier to share and move videos around, especially for like social media and things like that. HDR videos just don't look good on social media. And then it's also kind of the same for photos. If you go to the camera settings and go to formats, you have Apple ProRAW right here, which is going to allow you to use the linear DNG format to retain more information. So basically it means you're going to be able to edit the photos more and be able to like color grade them pretty much and edit them to your liking. So if you don't have any plans on doing that, just disable ProRAW. You're not going to need that. But if you like touching up your photos, I would turn that on. Just keep in mind that it will make your file size for each picture much larger if you have that enabled. And speaking of storage, this year with the iPhone 13 Pro Max, it's the first time ever where Apple did not include a specific feature based on the storage option that you got. So what I mean is that ProRes video, which is coming later this year, will not be available in 4K for 128 gigabyte devices. So you need to have a 256 gigabyte iPhone 13 Pro or 13 Pro Max to be able to shoot ProRes video in 4K. So that is the first time I've ever seen Apple exclude a feature based on your storage size of the phone, which is pretty crazy, but that is one thing you definitely need to know so you're not surprised when ProRes video comes out later this year. And another first for the iPhone 13 Pro Max is that it now comes in a 1 terabyte option. So Apple always had iPhone storage up to 512 gigabytes, but now it goes all the way up to 1 terabyte. So if you wanted to have a 1 terabyte iPhone, you now can with the iPhone 13 Pro or Pro Max. And speaking of the first time that something has ever been in an iPhone, the iPhone 13 Pro Max also has a 5-core GPU for the first time ever in an iPhone. So crazy graphics performance, gaming is going to be an absolute blast here on the 13 Pro Max with that big display and the 5-core GPU. The Geekbench scores are insane. So if you like gaming, if you like really intensive tasks like video editing, photo editing, any of that, it's going to be an absolute breeze on the iPhone 13 Pro Max thanks to that 5-core GPU. So if you use LumaFusion, if you play COD Mobile, enjoy it because it's going to be a lot better than it will be on any other device. Now, the next thing you need to understand about the iPhone 13 Pro Max is that the battery life is the best battery life ever. So we have a physically bigger battery in the iPhone 13 Pro Max compared to the 12 Pro Max and the 11 Pro Max. So the battery size plus the A15 Bionic chip is just going to make the iPhone 13 Pro Max last at least an entire day. Your battery life is going to be absolutely insane on this device. Now that doesn't mean to just, let it run all the time, let it run all the way from 100% to 0%. You still need to stay like in the 50 to 80% range if you can, but the battery life is going to be incredible on this. You definitely want to make sure you have optimized battery charging on as well, so you can retain that maximum 100% capacity. And if you want to get even better battery life on your iPhone 13 Pro Max, I did make a video showing over 40 tips and tricks that you can apply to get the best battery life possible on your device. So definitely go ahead and watch that as well. It's also linked up in the cards and down in the description below. Now, the next tip for the iPhone 13 Pro Max is to keep your Safari address bar on the bottom. So this is the default, but a lot of people are going to see this and be like, man, I'm not used to that. That's ugly. I want it to go back to the top like I was used to. But especially for the 13 Pro Max, keep it at the bottom. Look how easy it is to swipe between these different tabs right here. Whereas before, it'd just be so much harder to reach to the top of a 6.7-inch display. So just give this a chance. Now, if you did want to switch it to the top, you can tap these two A's right here and tap on Show Top Address Bar. But again, take a look at how hard that is to reach the top. I don't have to tell you guys, you have the phone, you know how hard it is, but I would just recommend keeping this on the bottom and giving it a chance. I hated it at first as well. I did not like it, but it grew on me and I really love it now, and I cannot live without that address bar being down there at the bottom. Now also, you can see we have these ads right there. If you want to get rid of that, it's really easy. If you go into your settings right here and then go down to the Safari section and then all the way down right here, you could also change the tab bar right there. But if you go down here to extensions, I passed it up, go to more extensions, you'll get opened into the App Store right here, and you can see the content blockers right here. I like to block. You can go ahead and download that and it will block all of your ads here in Safari. So let's go ahead and enable that. I'll show you guys in real time right here. If we refresh, you will not see this ad once it refreshes. So take a look at that. That's also going to be good for your battery life and just your overall, usability of the device. It's not going to be as annoying to browse in Safari since you don't have as many ads now. Now, the next tip is to take advantage of visual lookup and live text. So this is a feature that you have access to on the iPhone 13 Pro Max, and visual lookup is where you could take a photo of a dog, a cat, a plant, any object pretty much, and it can identify it. So you'll know this when you look at the eye down here. If it has the sparkles, that's how you know visual lookup is working. And if you swipe up, you can see it shows lookup and it identified this as a cat. And if you tap on that, it will show it's a tabby cat, which is correct. And then also if I go out here and then into this right here, you can see it can identify different plants as well. So you can see it identified it as a plant, and you can see it identified the exact type of plant that it is. And then we also have live text. So this works in real time. Like if you hold your camera up to something, you could copy the text in real time, or for photos. Like for example, I have a screenshot right here. If you tap this little button in the bottom right, you can see it shows everything we can copy. You don't have to tap on that though. You can just go ahead and copy the text just like so. You could copy it and look it up or share it straight from there. So definitely take advantage of that here on the 13 Pro Max as well. And then also when you take a photo, if you swipe up, you can see the exact details of which camera lens shot that picture. So you can see this was from the ultra-wide lens, so it is a macro shot it looks like, and you can see the millimeters, the f-stop, everything right there. You can see the size of the photo, the dimensions, everything. And then you also have this adjust button right here, which will let you change the date and time that the photo was taken at. Now, another new feature that we have in iOS 15 is the ability to drag and drop. So this is a feature that's cool on other iPhones, but it is by far the most useful on the 13 Pro Max. So if you have a 13 Pro Max, you need to take advantage of drag and drop. So all you need to do is simply tap and hold on an object, a link, a photo, anything. And you can also tap on others while you're holding that to add multiples into one, just like you can on the home screen with app icons. And then you could swipe up while holding that and take these links or photos to another application. Like if you wanted to send it as a text message, you could take it to the Photos app, or if you wanted to take it to Notes, you could do it in there. And one of the best use cases for this feature is with photos. So if you just have like photos right here that you find online and you wanted to save them in your Notes really quickly, or if you wanted to send them to somebody in a text message, you could just take all these right here, as many as you want, and then you could take it into like the Notes application, for example, and drop them right there, and they'll all show up in your Notes. Or again, you can do it for like, you know, in the photo library. If you want to drop them into your photo library, you could do that and it will save them all at the same time, or you could send it as a message. It works all throughout iOS. And again, it is the most useful right here on the 13 Pro Max more than any other iPhone. And speaking of things that just simply look better on the bigger device, widgets. So widgets also look better on this bigger display. So you need to take advantage of those bigger widgets here on the 13 Pro Max. So things like, you know, I like the mail, for example. Mail is a new one in iOS 15 that you could put there. You could have your big mail right here. So it shows a lot of your emails. And then also another one is the calendar. So if you have a lot of things on your calendar, you could add the calendar, this big size right here. You could add it to the home screen, and it takes up a lot of space, but not as much as it does on other devices. So that's one thing you definitely want to take advantage of, are the bigger widgets on such a bigger screen. Now, another feature you might want to enable here with the 13 Pro Max is BackTap. So this is going to be for things that might be hard to reach. So if we go into our settings here and we go into accessibility and then to touch, then down to the bottom you have BackTap right here. And you can see it says double or triple tap on the back of your iPhone to perform actions quickly. So I'm sure you heard of this, but if you maybe upgraded from an older phone where this was not a feature, you can now do this on the 13 Pro Max. So what's useful is pulling down things, like I said, like the control center, the notification center, something where it's hard to reach on such a big screen. So like I like doing the control center here. So if I double tap right here on the home screen, it pulls down the control center just like that. Double tap again and it puts it up. So definitely go ahead and enable the double tap feature. You could also do a triple tap for other things. If you want to have the control center for double tap, but maybe you want the notification center for triple tap. If I do this right here and then do a triple tap like this, you can see it brings down my notification center. So very useful on the 13 Pro Max. Whereas me personally, I don't use BackTap on any other phone because I don't find a use for it. But for the 13 Pro Max, I do find a use for it for things like this. Another tip for the iPhone 13 Pro Max is to create custom pages with focus mode. So if you go to your settings right here and go to focus and then go into the focus that's on. So for me, for example, it's sleep. I'll just go to this one right now. You can do it for whatever one you want. But if you go to home screen right here, you can actually set up custom pages. And if you only wanted a certain page to show up in a certain focus mode, you can enable that. So for this, you know, when I'm in bed, maybe I don't want to have a ton of applications to keep myself up all night. I could have those down here and also down low. That way I don't have to reach all the way to the top of my 13 Pro Max while in bed, which is like an impossible task. So this is convenient because they're all down here at the bottom and they're all applications that are not going to necessarily keep me up all night. So definitely go ahead and take a look at the custom home screens based on your focus mode. Very, very handy, especially here on this 13 Pro Max. Now, another tip that's extremely convenient for the iPhone 13 Pro Max is nothing new, but it's something that you may not be taking advantage of enough on this big display, and that is the keyboard trackpad. So if you tap and hold on the spacebar, you're able to go throughout the text like this. Whereas if you were just using your hand, you'd have to go all the way up here, all the way up to the top of this big screen, whereas you could just be using the spacebar here to go throughout all of the text very easily. So again, very old tip, but definitely one you want to keep in mind when you have such a big device. And then the final thing you guys want to do on your iPhone 13 Pro Max is go into the wallpaper section and go to live and go ahead and apply some of these live wallpapers. So these are exclusive to the iPhone 13 Pro and Pro Max. So you're the only one with them. I would take advantage of them and maybe apply different colors throughout different times if you want to. I know they can get old pretty quickly, but go ahead and take a look at these and enable them and put them on your home screen or lock screen if you want to. I really like this purple and red one right there. But anyways, guys, there you have it. Those are about 20 to 25 tips and tricks that you need to know about your brand new iPhone 13 Pro Max. So I hope this helped you out. I didn't want to be very repetitive and, talk about a lot of the same things I talked about in other videos. So if you guys want to see more tips, I have other videos for that. So I have the first things to do on the iPhone. You definitely want to see that one if you just got your 13 Pro Max. And then also I have the first settings to change and the battery life settings as well. So all of those videos can be found down in the description below and also in the cards up in the top right. But nonetheless, I hope you guys did enjoy this video, and I hope you are enjoying your iPhone 13 Pro Max. Let me know if you are down there in those comments below. But also, if you enjoyed this video, I would appreciate if you give it a thumbs up. And of course, make sure you subscribe for a lot more iPhone 13 Pro Max coverage here on the channel. But anyways, guys, thanks again for watching, and I'll see you soon.